In this video, I'll show you how to build the combination safe design. This is a wooden safe with a working combination lock and door where you can store things, but I don't think it's really secure. It's more decorative. To start with, cut out all the pieces. You need to cut all the basic pieces as well as 3 dials, an A dial, a B dial and a C dial. Refer to the document on picking a suitable combination. You'll also need glue, some kind of wax, I like to use beeswax, and a paintbrush would be very helpful. First thing we want to do is peel off any tape and prepare all the wood, sanding down any blemishes. After that's done, you should have a lot of unmarked pieces, as well as pieces marked with codes. L for latch, H for hinge, R for the rack, T for a couple of tool pieces, F for the faceplates, and D for the dials, as well as the A, B, and C discs. We're going to start with the rack. Take the R1 piece and the R2 piece and fit them together. You want to put a bit of glue in there to hold it tight. Just like that. Take the R3 pieces and glue them on either side of R1. Finally, take the R4 pieces and glue them onto the R3 pieces. I like to glue them with the codes facing down. When it's all glued, make sure all the pieces are nicely aligned. Next, you want to put some wax on the rack gear at the top, as well as inside this indentation here on the top and bottom. With that, the rack is complete. Next, let's make the dials and the combination lock. Take the 2 pieces marked D1 and glue them together via the scissor joint. Take the C dial and note which number you want to use. I'm using 5 in this example. We want to put the C dial onto the D1. I'm going to add a little bit of glue to keep it nice and secure. The long arm of the D1 should go through the number you desire. So slide that central column through, making sure that the long arm goes through the number 5 in this example. And you can see that sticking up a little bit. Glue D2 onto that extrusion, making sure to line it up as best you can. Next, we want to prepare the B dial. I'm using 34. Take D4, which is a small peg, and glue it into the number you desire. There we go. We want to glue a D3 and a D2 onto either side of this peg. Make sure to line it up as best you can. And finally, the A dial. I'm using 12. This time we need to take peg D5, which is the smallest part, and glue it into the A dial on the rear side. So that peg slides in on the rear side of the number I desire, 12 in my example, and glue a D3 onto that. Again, it must be the rear side. Now, using wax, paraffin wax or beeswax is ideal. Wax the inner side of the B and A dials. Using the T pieces, stack up the A and B dials, starting with the A dial face down, and then on top of that the B dial again face down. So the engraved numbers are face down. Use the two T pieces to stack them with gaps as shown. We want to take the 4 D6 pieces and slot them into the A and B dials orthogonally. On top of them, we want to glue D7. This can be a little bit tricky, so take your time. The A and B dials should look like this when you're complete. Now we're going to glue the A and B dials onto the back side of the door. The 4 diagonal holes should meet up with the pegs of the D6 pieces. Put some glue on the D6 pieces and then fit them into the rear side of the door. Now this is very tricky and it might take you quite a while to get it aligned correctly. If it feels like it's not very strong, don't worry. These pieces are for alignment rather than holding the discs onto the door. Once it's in place, you should be able to spin the A and B discs freely. Next, take the C disc and slot it through the A and B discs and through the door. Next, take D8 and slot it into the front side of the C disc. Then we're going to glue D9 on top. On top of that, we want to take the unmarked flower shaped piece and simply glue that on top of D9. Make sure to match the grain direction. Now the dial should turn, causing the discs at the rear of the door to turn as well. Let's build the latch. Starting with L1, we want to glue the 2 L2 pieces into the sides. Next, we want to glue the 2 L3 pieces face to face. Make sure to line them up well. With the L4 pieces, the same thing. We want to glue them face to face. And again, make sure they're lined up as best you can. Next, there's 2 L5 gears. We want to put one on L3 and one on L4. If it's well lined up, they should just slide down and they can be glued in position. Now next, on the L4, we want to glue in L6, which is a simple circle. And on top of that, we want to glue L7, the larger gear. We put the L4 gears with the larger gear face down onto the L1 housing, as well as the L3 gears, which poke through like that. If it's in correctly, they should mesh together. On top of that, we want to glue L8. I like to glue it face down so the number is hidden. Make sure the gears are in place before you glue this, as it holds them inside the mechanism. Next, we want to put the rack into the mechanism. Now, it goes a specific way around so that it's to the left of the turning dial. So as shown here, the large point on the rack should be next to the dials when it's glued in position. That's very important. If you put it the other way around, then you can't get it in once it's glued on. Once you've got that set up, glue the latch onto the rear side of the door, again with the large point on the rack facing the dials. You should find the rack and the latch is now slightly blocked by the dials. Next, we want to glue L9 onto the front side of the door. Make sure it's lined up well, so the latch handle can still rotate. The two L10 pieces should be glued into the latch mechanism. Now, we don't want to glue them to L9 or we won't be able to turn the handle, so only put glue on the side. Once again, make sure you don't glue them to L9. Next, you want to find the valve handle shaped piece and glue that onto the L10 pieces. Once that's dry, you can test out the door. I didn't wait and I actually slightly misaligned a few of the pieces. so please do wait until it's dry. If you want to enter the code, you can test the lock. Again, my code is 1234, which you can't see, and then 5. If you get that right, you can turn the latch handle, and as you can see, the rack fits into the dials. Let's build the body of the safe. There are two sides, one with spaces for the hinges and one with spaces for the faceplate. There's also the front, which has a big circular hole. Note that it is not symmetrical, and the pegs fit into specific wall pieces. Let's glue the front and the two walls together. Here's the rear. It is symmetrical, but you might want to match the direction of the grain with the front. Once the front and the rear are glued into one of the sides, we want to glue the other side on. Give it a good squeeze to make sure you get a nice firm fit. Let's glue the faceplate together. Faceplate is very simple. It only has 3 pieces. F1 fits into F2 and F3. You may want to glue F3 face down so that the code numbers are not visible. Once they're glued together, apply glue and insert the faceplate inside the safe. Next, let's assemble the hinges. Before we glue the hinges on to this side, we need to put this piece in place. It glues onto the side in front of the hinges. Make sure you line it up as well as you can. Take the H1 pieces and adding a small amount of glue in the position shown, slot them into the side of the safe. There are 8 of these and they all go in the same way. Next, glue in H5, which pins the hinges onto the side of the safe. It can be a little bit tricky to slide this into position. Make sure the hinges are pressed firmly into the side of the safe. Glue the other H6 to the lower hinges as well. Once it's glued in, the hinges should be firm and secure. Glue H7 and H8 together to make a hinge pin. There are 2 of these. Note that one side of the hinge pin is different. Leave them to dry. On the door, we want to glue hinge parts onto the top and bottom, and these are all slightly different. H2, H3 and H4 get glued in. H4 is the smallest and goes closest to the middle. H3 goes between them. And H2 goes on the topmost and bottommost slots. You'll know if it's correct because the circular gaps at the side will line up. Next, take the H6 pins and glue them on the inside of the hinges to secure them onto the door. These can be a little bit fiddly to put in, especially the ones closer to the dials. Once all the pins are in place, we can connect the door to the body of the safe. Make sure the door is unlocked. Slide the door hinge parts in between the body hinge parts. Now this can be really tricky. Don't be afraid to try and bend them into position because the alignment needs to be very good. Once you get it, you should find the hinges are quite tight, which is what we want. And we really want to just make sure the door and the body are as aligned as can be. Once you're happy, glue the hinge pins in place. Again, this can be a little bit tricky to get in position. You might need to wiggle it a little bit backwards and forwards. But if everything's aligned, it should go in. There we go. Once that's dry, we should be able to close the safe and lock it. Next, let's glue on the bottom and top of the safe. The bottom and top are the same, so I'm sure you get the idea. Under the rims of the top and bottom, we want to glue these pieces in place. Put glue inside them as well as on top of them. This will help create a nice, secure bonding for the top and bottom of the safe. Squeeze them tight. If you have clamps, you can clamp them together. Once that's done for the top and the bottom, the safe is now secure. There's 3 siding plates which have a curved side and a flat side, which can be glued into the sides, 1 on the hinge side and 2 on the other side, to cover up the joins. On the top of the safe, there are 4 additional coverings, 2 long and 2 short, that can be glued in position. These also cover up joins. Once they're all glued in and dry, the safe is complete. If needs be, you can sand the sides of the rack piece for a smoother connection to the faceplate, but this might not be necessary. If the dial is scrambled, the door should not open, and once the code is put in, the door should unlock and open easily. And here's the final design. I hope this helped. If you do build this design, let me know how you get on. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me or leave a comment. Thanks very much for watching.